Hello and welcome to the Artist View. I'm John Hopper, your host and a member of the Rossmore Art Association. It's a 300 plus strong association here in Rossmore of artists and art lovers. If you're interested in knowing more about Rossmore art, you can go online to www.rossmoreart.com. And today, our guest is Judy Schavrien, and we love have you here. And you have such a unique and different story. I can't wait to show you off to our audience.
I love it, John. Show me off. It's wonderful to get a chance to tell my story. And more than that, show the art, maybe interest people in doing their own art. I love the whole opportunity.
Yeah, you have such a montage, which we're going to show, of things that you've done over your life, but life-changing events that have, obviously changed your life. What else can I say? Why don't we start out with where you're from, where you were born, a little bit about growing up and kind of choosing a path?
Well, I started out in the Bronx, and that was a working class Italian neighborhood. And then when I was about 9, we moved right over the Bronx city line into Yonkers. And there I was in the orchestra in Yonkers. In the Bronx, I trained with an Italian maestro who had a big accordion orchestra. So the accordion there is, we gave concerts and so on. Once I gave a concert, I almost fell over from opening the bellows. Of course, I was young. Yeah. And then we were in Yonkers, and then from there I moved at 16 or 17 to the University of Chicago, and stayed there 20 years, stayed my midlife there.
Okay. And you went to school in Chicago? And
right.
What did you take in school?
Well, I finally graduated with a doctorate in what was called Committee on Social Thought. Okay. And that was a collection, all of it was interdisciplinary, which University of Chicago is kind of famous for. Yeah. And in Committee on Social Thought, it was a collection of black sheep who had been, the faculty, rejected in their youth. Famous people like Hannah Arendt, who couldn't get into a philosophy department in her youth, and they came begging when she was older. And Saul Bellow, the Nobel Prize winner. Yeah. And especially for art, there was Harold Rosenberg, who was the New York art critic, critic for the New Yorker, and also a great advocate and explainer of abstract expressionism. Yeah. So that's like de Kooning and the rest of them.
The artists, yeah.
Pollock, of course.
Yeah.
And all of that influenced me a lot. I think I had a maverick tendency to begin with, but they gave me confidence and directions for how to question convention.
Okay.
But perhaps anyway address a wide audience.
Yeah. But Saul Bellow had once said you were a Renaissance woman.
Right. Saul Bellow was a great mentor of mine for decades, really.
Okay.
And he knew me first as a studying scholar and a poet. And then when I brought him my first drawings, he said, "They're going to try to stop you, but don't let them." I said, "Stop me from what?" He said, "Being a Renaissance woman."
That's great.
So I took his advice.
It's a great description because you're involved in music, in poetry, in writing, in art, all those elements. So it makes you a Renaissance woman. He's just right on. And before we get into the art and all of the things that happened to you in your life journey, let's talk a little bit about poetry. because you did a poem that I think, excuse me, illustrates some of that montage, that feeling, that interconnectivity.
Yeah, a synesthesia, you could call it, the music suggesting the visuals, suggesting. If you'll forgive me, I didn't really say enough about my background, and let me take one step back and then read the poem.
Absolutely.
The background, what really also matters is that I had a mother from the Eastern Europe side of Jewish life.
Okay.
So that's Romania, Poland, Lviv, which is now Lviv, and we're hearing about it all the time in the Ukraine. Right. And that was a whole kind of Jewish culture that's full of ups and downs and laughter and tears. It's klezmer music, it's Jewish violin like this.
Yeah.
And then a father whose father was from Amsterdam. Okay. So that's like sunlight and bright and practical. And, so I'm always dealing with these two mixtures and how to make sense of them. So even I probably, in the poem, this particular poem, there's not a lot of mixing and conflict. But you'll see in a lot of the paintings, there's trauma, many people killed in Auschwitz and Sobibor, and there's trauma and tension. And
I think what I found in this poem were the colors.
Right.
You place all these colors, so you create a visual thing in the listener's mind. It's gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as a poet, I was really a painter, and now as a painter, I think I'm sort of lyric or poet sometimes, sometimes a storyteller and narrator.
Well, definitely a storyteller.
Okay, here we go. This is from a book of my poems called Everything Voluptuous.
Right.
Right. And it's from a cycle to a particular woman. It's a portrait. Okay. And as a painter, I'm still doing portraits. Okay. But this one is called How the Memories Open Out. If I could thread through the eyes of my many memories to emerge again on your dark blue couch near your blue-bloused body in the empty green of a night in the suburbs, where you no longer live and no longer breathe, to Ray Charles, remembering Georgia, Georgia. If I could find the right thread through the eye of my memory, ride on the sleekest, silkiest hue of it. Red from the long drive, raw from the black wind, warming at long last to your gold body. If I could climb through that eye to emerge where the green, unpleating spaces are falling away and the full-voiced choir of Schoenberg's Dream in Jacob's Ladder throbs as we kiss, still listening, throbbing again its pyramid toward heaven, then I would twist through that aching black gap in memory, plunge through an anti-universe of memory, to emerge again in the night by the lakeside, simply embracing you, simply embraced right now, this instant. Oh, my darling, I would. So,
that's so beautiful. Yeah,
thank you very much.
And it paints such a wonderful picture, and memories, but visually, just right there. That's so nice.
Thank you.
Even in your paintings, let me go to the next one. Come on. These are early.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And the lighting and the drawing is so marvelous. So it has a blue cast. I think of Picasso's blue period, but it's blue. But then the highlight on the hair and the color and the subtle colors just makes it alive and sparkle. Anyway, it's so nice. What
I see, yes, I see my young self. I must have been 35 or so, and I was learning to draw. It's in a somewhat academic style. It's a very traditional style. I see the hope that that little light on my cheek, I think I was in Florida and it was the silver light, but I was hoping for eventual enlightenment, you know, that it might overtake the whole face. But the rest of the face also inherits that kind of Romanian, Polish blues, you know, a little bit of the melancholy. And I see the lips, young,
is that all pencil or is it?
Yeah, charcoal and white charcoal, white Conti, probably.
Beautiful, gorgeous. And then you did a different one, which is all warm tones.
Yes.
Which is, tell us a little bit about this.
Well, I call her Regina. And I don't remember the actual model's name, but I was so thrilled to get a model who wasn't a young, perfect nymphette, but someone who had lived. And it was a time when there are very few, at least white people's drawings of Black people who are, especially Black women, who are intelligent and dignified. It was like the early 80s, maybe, and the civil rights was very strong where I was, Chicago, Hyde Park. That's Obama's neighborhood. So I loved her. No problem to portray that love. Regina, I call her Queen, you know.
Beautiful. So you were in Chicago, Hyde Park, turbulent times. Tell me more about that.
Well, yes, that I was proud to do Regina because I think in art, you know, you can make political statements. And I was also at that time teaching at Malcolm X Junior College, hoping to further the country's move towards justice and healing. But then something did catapult me out of Chicago. That's how I ended up on the West Coast eventually.
Okay. And in this video we're going to play, it explains a good deal of what happened and your transition and your move. So why don't we play the video?
All righty.
Okay.
I'm Judy Schavrien. I'm an artist and a psychotherapist. This is a rogues gallery of Greek characters, and you'll be seeing more of them later. But first I'll show you some contemporary survivors. I portray the faces of survivors. That's probably because I was shot in a mugging. I was shot in the face. I'm lucky enough to have recovered my face, but the obsession remains. My first survivor is a cancer survivor, Judith. This is another take on Judith. Both were done on the iPad. Many people of color are survivors that have been through the mill. Brian is part African American, part Creole, part Choctaw. The first version of him I did on the iPad. Then I took a large piece of paper, 25 by 37, used charcoal and pastel to portray Brian. You might consider some immigrant family survivors too. They say it's down to the third generation, leaving the old world behind, adapting to the new. This is Yasmin. Maybe she's dreaming of her mother's life in the Middle East or of her life to come in the New World. And growing old kind of makes you into a survivor. This is called Life Like Leaves Falling. If you are what you eat, maybe you are what you see. It can carve itself into your face. Julie is a splendid model. She is missing half of one arm. She can get a fierce look. I did this one when I was very grateful to be still here. You can blow it up big as a billboard. It's digital. This one is a self-portrait. It's a scribble self-portrait.
that is, a traumatic experience. I can't even imagine, what you went through in that situation. And we'll do more of the video. We'll continue with the video as we go through the interview. But this kind of picks up on the interview.
It does.
Yeah. I mean, picks up on the video.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about this piece.
Yes, well, I had a year-long healing journey, year and a half, around the world, mostly on a shoestring, but it was so reinvigorating and totally refreshed my eyes.
Yeah.
In the meantime, my face was healing. I had gotten shot on my cheek, sort of burst open. But I had great doctors, and it was healing well.
Good.
And I was doing a lot of emotional and spiritual work, and the planet was doing a lot of work with me.
Yeah.
All those different landscapes, a lot of people that I could corner, like the Coleridge's figure, the ancient mariner, and tell them my story. Right. So I was healing. And I got to the West Coast and began learning to paint more. I really learned to draw in Chicago. But on the West Coast, starting to paint, and the first one I paint, is American Dream, If You Suffer, I Suffer.
Okay.
And that was a lot with oil stick and charcoal and so on, very mixed media.
Did the emphasis on portraiture, was that partially because of the facial, healing and need to focus on your face, or was it just happened?
Yeah, when you get shot in the face, you discover that, I discovered, for me at least, that my personality sat in my face. So it shattered my personality, it shattered my self-confidence, it shattered the long relationship I was in at the time, 20 years. That was the end of that. But it's a chance to start anew. And yes, I became more obsessed with faces. I had been at that time a teacher and a psychotherapist for a couple of decades. Right. I got shot at 40, so maybe from 20 to 40.
Right.
I was a psychotherapist, and a therapist has to be involved in people's faces in order to say the right thing at the right time. It's sort of like a midwife giving birth,
You read faces.
Yeah, you read faces.
Yeah.
But for sure, getting shot made me value everything that's facial in the face.
Yeah. But how much courage did it take with that, everything that happened, to travel?
That's right. Some people who were healers, who'd had many clients, they said they knew people who had gotten raped or mugged who retired to islands. Yeah. Like it never came out again.
Yeah.
Never came out again. Yeah, no, it was an excuse for something I wanted since I was 8. I said, why would anyone settle in one place before they'd seen the rest of the places? Right?
Yeah, get some choices.
Yeah, right.
So you wound up on the West Coast.
Yes, in the end, I wound up on the West Coast. Yeah. But I got to see so much I was deeply fascinated by as a baby boomer. I had to see China and Japan and India. And I had seen a lot in the first 20 years, 20 to 40 of Europe. Yeah. But now I needed, to me, older, more primal.
Yeah.
That's what I needed.
So what part of the West Coast? Here or?
Here.
Okay.
Compared the rest.
Yeah.
San Francisco, Bay Area is the best.
Yeah. And so landing in San Francisco, art school, what did you do? So back to psychotherapy or?
Yes, all of that. I had to regain my license and take art courses at City College, wonderful, all kinds of courses.
Yeah, so that was great. So should we move on to the next one?
There it is.
Yeah.
So that's called Still Here.
Yeah. So
and
it's a self-portrait?
Yes, self-portrait. Actually is done with the iPad. and graffiti behind, and
Okay.
you could blow it up like a billboard.
Yeah.
That's what I
Okay.
like.
Yeah. And it's like a chalkboard and all these things going on, and so there must be there's so much symbolism in this that it's fascinating. You probably talk about this for an hour, or
Well,
hours.
the best story about it is an art buddy, and he could pass as white, and I sort of encouraged him if he wanted to do the black part of his art. I thought, that's so needed.
Yeah.
In the end, he did a lot of that. He did a lot of his own neighborhood. I love him. His name is Eric, and he's an art buddy. So Eric looks at this, and he says to me, "Oh, I forgot, you're the one who loves graffiti." He says, "Why don't you go out and actually do it? I'll have you back. I'll bail you out." So that was that.
Yeah, that's fun. That's great, and the lighting and everything in this is so good. And why digital? Why did you go to digital on this particular one? Was there any reason, or did you want to ease into using the computer as a tool for your art, or what? How did that happen?
That's like such another large story.
Okay.
But maybe I can make it short. I tried to make a living as an artist. I said, this was in about 2000 now. I moved to the West Coast in like 1988, 1989.
Okay.
Was a therapist, was a professor. The school imploded. Tried to make a living as an artist. Decided, this is no way to make a living. So I started day trading. Made a lot of money, then the market crashed, lost a lot of money, and had to start making another kind of living at Schwab as a web content manager. So that's how I became techie.
Okay.
And techie came into the art.
Okay.
And I love iPads. Love it.
Yeah.
iPad art.
Such a move, such an interesting move from the Excel spreadsheet to this digital format for your art. It's beautiful. And computers, art, digital art, it's just another tool. It's like going from a charcoal stick out of the fire to tying a piece of horsehair on it and having a brush and dipping it in some dye.
And you're very enlightened as a traditional artist. Many traditional artists think you have betrayed the cause. No, it's just a stylist with a pad.
It's a tool. And where would we be if the person hadn't tied a horsehair onto the thing and figured out how to fill in the lines?
That's right, exactly.
So anyway, it's all evolution, and this is your father.
Yes, it's called Love Letter to My Father, and it's actually a little before Still Here, but Still Here was apropos of the video and the mugging.
Right.
But this, I'm still, having moved to San Francisco, now learning to do oil paint.
Okay.
And there it is. It's just a sort of decent, rather Jewish man that's like my father.
Yeah.
Like my father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you. Well, and I must say, after the mugging, I prayed very hard, even though I didn't necessarily believe in God. I just, to whoever, the powers that be, please put me back together.
Yeah. So this was oil and canvas, or?
Oil. Yeah. Oil, maybe some pastel on top.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's so prolific in so many things, and this takes you into a whole nother medium.
Yes, but it's called The Jewish Actor. It's another really lovely Jewish man, even though he was also a rogue. He was a member of the Ingmar Bergman ensemble, and he and Ingmar were such womanizers. But a terrific actor, head eventually of the Swedish Dramatic Society. Erland Josephson. Love him.
And you get caught his eyes so beautifully, you know, with the pastel. The eyes just are looking out and, you know, either seeing the audience or seeing what he wants to say. And I love the turquoise and the strokes with the pastel. It just has such a nice feel, and there's so much energy.
Energy, yes,
Yeah.
I love that word.
Yeah.
And well, first let's talk about the eyes.
Yeah.
I find younger generations of painters are very clever about photo projections, just to place the figure on the canvas. Me, I took a video of him talking to Liv Ullmann, another great actress, but they were old friends.
Yeah.
And she was saying, Erland, when I die, will you come to my funeral? And he looked at her, and will you talk about me at my funeral, you know? And he looked at her and he said, and sometimes, dear friends, don't even have to say anything. So that's actually the moment when I did a freeze frame.
Yeah.
And she likes to burble, sort of the way I do.
Yeah.
like to talk.
Yeah. And
It's very loving.
Yeah. And the pastel is so different in the way it, you know, captures the personality of him, you know.
Well, yes, go ahead.
Yeah,
well, you were talking about marks. That's the other thing, energy and marks.
Yeah.
And I think we both
marks.
agree it matters so much.
Yeah. It's part of your signature. Yeah. And so let's go to the next one. And this is called The Kiss.
Yes.
It's so nice. So, and this is not pastel, or is pastel?
There's some pastel in it. It's mixed media very often, and it's some oil sticks in it.
Okay.
And there's a passing figure way in the background there. You see?
Yeah, I see it.
Because how long do they really have with each other? But what matters is she's taking it in that he loves her.
Right. Yeah. And the expression on her face is being grateful, I think, and being, you know, there and present. And he has such a comforting look on his soft expression. So beautifully done. Anyway, now cats.
Okay. Yes, a new phase. New phase.
Cats, we can talk about cats a little bit because you have more than one of your impressions of the cat in this series. Well, then two, and then we have a detail that we can look at. But tell me a little bit about the cat.
All right. Now, I actually have done quite a number of cats, but we've included two here.
Okay.
And I call this one Jerry le chat, Jerry the cat. And it looks at you with a certain irony. It came from a postcard that my niece sent to me. And I looked at the postcard and I said, oh, gee, he looks out of his eyes the way my niece looks out of her eyes. So I had to capture it. And I was taking big kitchen size, you know, if you had a big kitchen window and you had folded temporary screens. And I was, again, you know, like the younger generations, putting on a gas mask, doing spray painting, then going over it with pastel.
Okay. Yeah, you can see the folds.
Yeah.
In the background, but they just add to the kind of sense of a dimension of the cat. I don't know how to say it exactly, but you know, you could probably explain it better. Now, the whiskers and the fur, is that just scratched out of the back, or is that actually?
No, I'm sure I used a very soft white pastel. Very soft, so I could always go over the top of this surface. But I have lived with cats. Living with 4 of them was a riot. And watching them sort of maneuver for supremacy.
Yeah, interact.
and protection and so on. I love cats. I love cats.
The eyes in the cat are wonderful. You know, he's kind of looking up. It's like, you really want me to do that?
Really? That's it. Really? Really?
Anyway.
About that. And I guess I'm always trying to push the margins, get a kind of bird's eye view on things.
Yeah. Is there a particular reason you use the shade or the...
Cat's eye view, yeah. The shade, yes, because not every artist wants to do this, but I do want to do it. I want to be connecting to younger generations, and I want to break the tradition so that it's moving something forward in modern art.
Okay.
Of course, that's a tradition now in modern art to
Yeah.
always be breaking the tradition.
Yeah.
But the folds make a little abstraction
Yeah.
into the pictorial.
Well, and it's putting a medium on a different material.
Yeah.
And so it makes it really interesting. So this was sprayed and pastel, and
Yeah.
you know, so yeah, I can see where the spraying comes in, and so and you know, back to a little bit of your graffiti.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
would Eric bail me out, you know? But
Well,
you
it
go into
depends
the
where you put
stores
this.
to buy the sprays, and they're behind locked steel sort of
Yeah.
gates because the kids are coming in to steal the spray.
Yeah,
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 yeah, that's right. And you know, the spray paint, you got to go in and get the person at the store to unlock the cabinet for you.
Right.
Okay, and this really is nice because it shows the shade or the piece, the folds in it that are hanging up, and gives you a actual feeling for the proportion of it, the size of it.
Yes,
And
very big.
You know, tell me a little bit about the guy sitting in the chair.
Oh, well, that's a master study from an expressionist. As I mentioned, I'm sort of a mentee of Harold Rosenberg, who dealt with the abstract expressionists.
Okay.
And the difference with expression is you're willing to distort. To be an expressionist, you distort sometimes the form and color because emotion, you know, you want to come across with what's inside the artist.
Yeah.
Right. So Sheila was beginning of the 20th century in Vienna, and they were all breaking convention, trying to throw off the Victorian corset, especially of sexuality, but also politically, the workers' movement, you know. So I did a master study of that. He's an artist, and therefore his hands are like that.
Yeah.
And I love those early 20th century artists, again, trying to introduce the modern age and throw off the old conventions. And they ended up persecuted by Hitler. Hitler called them the decadent artists, made a big exhibit of them, and that got them a huge audience. Everyone in Germany came to see their decadent art. So I hope he looks decadent enough.
Yeah, yeah, that's wonderful. And back to the cats, let's go to the next. And this is digital?
Yes, this is sheer photo montage, but it's based on the earlier image.
Right.
So first you take a photo of that image, then you fill in the montage.
Yeah, and it's, if you could really stand right in front of this, you would be amazed at all the images within this piece. And what we'll do is we will show a piece of it here in detail, and you can just take a look at that. But you can get an idea before we show you that of all of the elements in this by just looking at the whole thing. It's you know, pretty incredible. The only thing I can think of offhand is Dolly would have been proud of you. This is something like Dolly would have loved to have had this kind of technology to to expand on and to do some of his stuff.
Well, he liked to play with your mind, didn't he?
Yes, yeah.
He did.
His Lincoln portrait, there's all little things of Lincoln, and then you stand back and it's Lincoln, but if you walk up, it's all these.
I didn't know Dolly started that.
Yeah, he did one of that, and I remember seeing that in Europe, and so that's why I relate somewhat to that. I mean, he did all the things that people know, the melting watches and all of that. But
well, he was a great technician.
Yeah, well, a draftsman. A lot of painters called it. He was a draftsman.
All right.
And a master of foreshortening. Yeah. The thing of Christ with the big feet and the head, the small head, and all that.
All of
but
it.
Anyway, you've taken it to an nth degree. It's gorgeous.
Yes. Yeah. Again, I had art colleagues who thought, this is not collage, you can't do that. But anyway, if you blow it up very big, then it's easier to count the cats. And kids love to come up and compete with each other to count the cats. But mathematicians beat everybody. They don't count the cats. They just divide it in 4 squares and they figure it, they figure out.
Yeah, you met Cecilia.
Yeah, well, Cecilia won a contest at my 75th birthday party. I said, anybody who wants to print, figure out how many cats. Of course, Cecilia won because she's a mathematician.
Yeah, right. And does that in some of her paintings.
Yes.
Puts equations in them.
Yes.
Anyway, we need to, I think, pick up on the video at this point. And you did Greek. Yeah. Tell me.
Yes.
Why?
All right. Yes, it's a series. And again, it is art on paper. And it isn't spray paint. Instead, the basis is ink that I flung at these Chinese scrolls. And I took a mop and I put it in a pail and I flung the ink on, and then I carved out these figures, mostly with pastel and stuff, occasionally collage.
Okay.
Yeah. But I actually know something about these characters. Famous Oedipus, the whole Oedipus cycle.
Yeah.
I've actually written about them, published them, but it's totally different to try to visualize how they'd look today.
Yeah.
So that's what's here.
Okay, we'll go to the video.
Yeah. The New Ancient Greeks. I've taken characters from the Greek tragedies and imagined them as they might look today. The series has 32 images in it with 16 scrolls, but I'm showing you some of the scrolls from the Oedipus cycle. Not knowing his origins, Oedipus kills his own father and marries his mother. Tiresias, the blind prophet, divines the truth. Oedipus goads him into it, and Oedipus takes in the terrible truth. Creon, the uncle and brother-in-law to Oedipus, claims the throne, but Antigone, daughter of Oedipus, resists his political scheming. I have to say, when I did her, I was thinking of Angela Davis. Oedipus in exile, a pariah, nobody would take him in but King Theseus of Athens. When the old man died, his bones became a protective blessing to Athens. I treated these scrolls as no traditional Chinese artist would. No kid gloves for the delicate paper. I just beat it up the way fate had beaten up these mythical Greek ancestors.
We've looked at the Greek things, the Greek images in the video and the stories, but this wasn't in the video. This is but it's still part of the story?
It's part of a different story, a different era.
Okay.
But it's still one of the characters you would have seen on a Greek stage, right? It was like newspapers. They'd come every year to the festival of tragedy, and the playwrights would express their opinions on these characters, slyly referring to modern-day politicians, but as if we're talking about the ancient Greek characters.
Okay, right.
Okay, so this one is Hecuba, and she comes from the story of the Trojan War, whereas the other is the Oedipus cycle. And as a therapist, of course, it was great to discuss the Oedipus cycle because you're dealing with Oedipus complexes and so on. But here, this is from the Trojan War. She's Hecuba. She was queen of Troy, and she lost 19 children and her husband and her country and got carted off by Odysseus as a slave. Mm. And she is being put on the stage now everywhere, all over the world, by veterans enacting her story, by Syrian refugee women enacting her story. Mm. So we're talking about here, a displaced person, carted off. And also we're talking about an old person. So I like to portray strong, intelligent women, not portrayed often enough, and old people, not portrayed often enough.
And the medium in this one, is it mixed media?
The same thing, flinging the ink on the on the scroll, and then filling it in with charcoal and white pastel.
Yeah, beautiful.
And I love that paper. Of course, when you work on paper, it matters what paper. Well, that's a Chinese paper called Xian.
Yeah, and she has such a kind of tragic but stoic look on her face. You've captured a really interesting, image of her. I would have to know the story better to probably get all the innuendos or whatever out of it, all the inferences. Anyway, it's gorgeous. I love the piece. I love the style and the here again, the energy in it.
Thank you, John, and thanks for saying you wouldn't have to know the story. Yeah, I love to put the story with the face, but it's in the face.
Yeah, it is. It is, but you would get more out of it if you probably knew the story. You would even see more in the face and so forth. This is when you were in Greece, Lesbos?
Yeah, so I did the ancient Greek cycle, and then we mentioned Cecilia before. Cecilia is an artist here in Rossmore. We have such wonderful characters in Rossmore, and she was so moved by the huge refugee misery from Syria, from north of Africa, that she founded Refugee Education and Learning International. And she took me by the collar and took me off with her as artist in residence to modern-day Greece.
Yeah, I know Anna George went with her also to this. Yeah,
we all went there to modern-day Greece. Although I had my book of Greek scrolls. I showed it to the Greek people. They love it that we're still remembering their gods and their heroes and their tragic figures. But here, while she was teaching, I was going to what's called a Hope Art Project, where people got out of the misery of their tents in Moria Camp. Moria Camp's a refugee camp made for 3,000 tents, but by then it was about 20,000 tents of people from every different culture. I'm afraid that a lot of the Middle Eastern men were trying to keep their women in their tents, and then they could butt heads. But there was a certain miracle that they mostly got along. But wonderful that a lot of young adults could come to Hope Art Center every day, get a meal, paint their trauma. And I met Abdullah, who was about 21 at the time, and he was a refugee artist. And we sort of fell in love. We're still awfully good friends to this day. Yeah. And I've helped him through some of his ordeals, even fundraised for him, for the family when Afghanistan fell. Mm. And he has reinvigorated my art and life.
Yeah, he has I don't know, kind of a tragic countenance, but somehow with hope. Somehow there's a hope in his eyes. There's it's you can feel the past and the tragedy and so forth, but it's still like you've captured the glint, the hope, he's going to make it.
Well, you know, we got him out of Greece, where nobody can get a job, not Greek citizens either. And he languished there for 2 years, 3 years. And a non-governmental organization took him to Rome, and they told him, it's the Pope's birthday. Why don't you give him a painting? He gave the Pope a painting, and the Pope said, I like this. I'm going to put it in my bedroom. It's a painting of refugees landing on the shore. And the Pope's awfully good, Pope Francis, about refugees. Yeah. He gets millions of gifts and throws them away, sort of.
Stores them.
But Abdullah is now in the Pope's bedroom on the wall.
Nice. Wonderful story. And this is also Lesbos. And I love that you've located it and the date, 2019, and Lesbos. And, here again, is this almost in the graffiti style a little bit?
Yeah, kind of.
And I love the white paint that kind of comes around. I don't understand it exactly, but I love it the way it circles her head and comes down into her clothing, and you put it down in here. Just has such a nice thing. It pops her right up out of the background too. You have such a nice touch with the thing. A lot of people could say, you've painted a lot of kind of misery, but there's such a ray of hope, or a ray of redemption or something in your paintings, that the past and the history and the misery is there, but it's coming out of it. I get the feeling. I looked for it when I looked at your paintings and read some of your books that we'll show a little later, and so I looked for it and I found it.
Yeah, I could listen to you talk all day, John. I love it, what you're saying, and I think it's true. Now, I called her Grandmother Hope. She had just landed on the shore. Someone took a photo of her. She brought her 6 grandchildren. Oh. I know she looks young, but of course in the Middle East, some people are young. In plenty of places of our country too. But anyway, and she brought the children of other mothers who'd been slain with her, and she got them safely to the shore of this Greek island, Lesbos, where Moria camp was. Yeah. She did it. I love her face. Yeah. And I love it that you say you can't quite understand the white. I like to disassemble minds, because these are disassembled lives. Yeah. But then rebuild.
Yeah. And it gives me something to look at and try to decide what it is. But I finally decide that that's not what's important. What's important is her face and the idea and the history and her coming to Lesbos and surviving. Yeah. That's such a story, and each one of the paintings you do is a story, just like this one. This is one that Whoa. Whoa. Tell me about this one.
All right. Stanley hangs in my bathroom so that I know bones and anatomy. I'm really, in some ways, very conventional. I like to know the rules in order to break them.
Is he large or small? Or?
He's large. He's life-size.
Okay.
And that's me in the front. So now I'm combining photos with painting. You know, there's painting. I paint over the photos. I did actually in Grandmother Hope also. And it's collage. The faces are World War II faces. As I said, a lot of my family was killed in World War II. But these are from Kathy Kollwitz.
And this is called Never Again?
2020, Never Again.
2020,
because
Never
it's
Again.
COVID. It's the year when I was, solo confined. There it is, our wonderful 2020.
Yes, okay. But
and I went in the mirror and I took my face, I photographed my face 8 million ways. And then I painted over the one I liked best, but I could never get the eyes quite right. So I left the photo eyes in there.
Eyes in there, okay. Yeah. And you put the eyes in the skeleton?
Yeah, I did hype them. I hyped them, yes.
Yeah, right.
That's Stanley.
So this is really a statement on COVID and
yes.
Yeah.
Millions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this too.
Yeah, this is what's the Spanish painter's name?
Goya.
Goya.
Inspired by Goya.
Yeah. I picked up on that, but I couldn't think of the painter, but I saw Goya's paintings in Madrid.
Yes.
And yeah, I liked some of them, and I didn't like others. I like the ones of the Revolution and and all, but some of them are too.
You must have seen the black paintings.
Yeah, too
horrifying.
Yeah, and it's just I mean, it was a statement of his times, and it was probably depression and agonizing over what was going on, but it's hard to look at.
Yes, French invasion of Spain and church doing not what it should to help, and or Inquisition still, I think. But horrifying, the black paintings. I love them.
But talk about
here,
this.
Here, I'm solo confined, quarantined, right, in COVID. So again, it's combining a photographing of my own face twice, two different kinds of faces. And it's called Caring in a Time of Plague. And even his original one was, they say he had the Eastern Plague.
Okay.
So he too was caring in a time of plague. And it's also about a long dying of a friend of mine and the helplessness. And now I do caregiving for quite a number of years. And again, that's Rossmore.
Yeah.
But as you say, they're people who are challenged or hard lives or dangers they're going through. But I think it's compassion art. I think you see the will to survive, the caring, I hope.
Yeah. And what was the medium on this one?
It's iPad. It's photographing.
Oh, okay.
And
then doing it on the iPad.
Yes.
Yeah. It has a very, very oil, look to it. The fabrics and the folds and the coloring and so forth. So it really does have a sense of an oil painting. But that's wonderful. You could achieve that on the iPad and so beautifully. That's marvelous.
Yeah, a lot of digital art, when the younger generations do it, not all, but a lot, look like manga, look like cartoons.
Yeah. Well,
look very digital.
Because they start with a lot of the templates that are already on there, and
you're right.
Yeah, and so it directs them if they would be. I won't get into this story about me. I went down to Apple one time, and I had a 6-year-old sitting next to me with an iPad, and I had just gotten a really fancy iPad, and I got an art program on it, and they were going to show us how to use them. And I wound up learning more from this six-year-old kid than I did from the guys, because they were doing templates all, and he was just drawing and having a wonderful time and doing gorgeous stuff. And I said, I want to do it like you do it.
No, absolutely. Yeah. When I have, handed my iPad over to a kid, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
I sit in museums sometimes and copy masters, and then the kids sit down and I hand it over.
Well, they haven't been indoctrinated with, you got to stay in the lines, you got to draw, you got to paint inside the lines. The kids are so imaginative and so different. And you say, oh, what's that? And they'll tell you a whole story about what they just did. And you're wow.
Right, wow.
So that's, and this is.
All right, now from the caregiving, this is one of my survivors. It's already, you may have seen it already in the video, but I'll talk just a little bit. This is survivor Judith. So it is someone who has found many brilliantly inventive ways to stay alive, clinical trials and so on. And she actually runs a social media board, Breast Cancer Straight Talk. So lots of women benefit from her knowledge. I like it. I think I captured a soul there in the face.
It's a beautiful rendering. It's a beautiful painting. It's just got so many things going for it and it blends the background with the foreground, and it's just the colors, and it's one of my favorite. In fact, I think when we first started this, I put this up at the top, but it didn't work chronologically with the rest of it. But I liked it so much, I kind of put it at the start, and it works much better here.
Okay, all right then.
Let's go on. And then this one is so kind of different from the Judy, the survivor. That tell us a little bit about.
Well, actually, it's another take on Judith.
Okay.
Although I substituted kind of El Greco hands, which she took note of.
Yeah.
But to me, the hands express both being attacked by illness, but surviving.
Well, the nice thing is the hand up at the chest, and you do that as a gesture quite a bit. Yeah,
I do it myself.
Yeah, and it's a heartfelt. And what is the idea of is there a idea behind the vertical?
Just the decorative, just putting together people with their environment, but in this case it's an abstract environment. And it's just oddly decorative. But I feel that as we grow older and make an acquaintance with tragedy or death, shake hands with death, we get aware of how transparent we are, how permeable. We're permeable.
Yeah.
We've seen the cycles, and we know we're in the cycles. Yeah. It's not I came, I saw, I conquered. It's not that. It's like the cycles, and I'm in them, and I'm glad if I'm surviving them. Yeah. And we're all in the cycles together. Yeah. So permeable. Yeah. I would just say permeable.
Yeah. And you did an interesting thing. You did the little device down there.
Yes.
And
Japanese art, Chinese art,
a little
stamp.
They have a name for that, and the Japanese woman here that does a lot of paintings told me what it is, but I would mispronounce it even if I could remember it. Mm-hmm. This one is kind of a marvelous painting too. She's so strong with big hair.
Well, that's what it's called, Teresa with big hair.
Big hair, yeah. And
yes.
Is it also digital, or is it?
It's digital, and it's in recent years, the last couple of years, I've been doing mostly digital. Although now I'm back to some handwork. You have to go back and forth.
Yeah.
but it's a fabulous model.
Yeah.
The model is often the one who should take credit for a lot of what's happening.
Well, they're the subject and the motivation.
They're the muse, the
muse,
inspiration.
yeah.
I love this woman, a young woman who's making her way in the world, and so this time she came in with big hair.
It looks very charcoal,
yes,
oriented, and it's it's beautiful. The lighting and everything is so gorgeous, and I'm fascinated. I would love to talk more about how you do the digital stuff. Maybe we can sit down at some point and I can bring an iPad, you can bring an iPad.
Oh, gladly,
yeah,
gladly.
It would be.
And I should mention, people do ask. I use Procreate and I use Adobe Fresco.
Okay.
And when you find your charcoal brushes, digital brushes, or your charcoal oil paint, or your oil paint, in Fresco it's called live oil paint because things mush together.
Okay.
And there's a live watercolor where you can either dry the layer or they mush.
Yeah.
So it's Adobe Fresco and Procreate.
Yeah.
And this, of course, is another iPad. And here I'm acting like an etcher, And it's, go ahead.
No, I was going to say you've used this as a cover for one of your books.
Right. I almost used the one you liked best, but instead I did this one.
Yeah, and this is the one.
Life Interrupted.
Cover. Yeah, Life Interrupted. Tell me a little bit about this.
So I call this one Myself as a Man. And you can see it is digital, but it has a very cross-hatchy and etching look to it. The cross-hatching, Abdullah's a great cross-hatcher, so he's kind of influenced me in that direction. And I call it Myself as a Man partly because of how it happened. I was drawing a long time. I was not drawing in a constant light, but instead in a shifting light.
Okay.
Artists often like northern light that's more constant. But this was shifting lights, and in the process of drawing, the nose got stronger and stronger. That's a nice, strong nose there.
Yeah.
And I thought, is that my father's Jewish nose, my brother's Jewish nose? They've got nice hooked noses. But I realized I also love the Fayum mummies. That's when Romans were colonizing Egypt. Well, those are two great noses, too.
Yeah.
So I ended up myself as a man. And I put it last in the book, Life Interrupted, because I said, I have grown comfortable with how life keeps changing us.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know about my life, that I'm lesbian. I was straight when I was young. I'm lesbian now,
Yeah.
And I know the younger generations won't even say lesbian, this, that. I'm queer, I'm non-binary. But it's about the way things shift from day to day. And I think that belongs in this whole story.
Yeah.
Life Interrupted, Portraits in a Late Style.
Yeah.
The older you get, you know how things keep shifting.
Yeah.
It's an aftermath.
Yeah, lesbian is a description. It's LG, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans. If I could
inquiring,
I all of those things that they had a Doonesbury Trudeau did a cartoon last Sunday on Zonker and his young nephew Zach and I think it's Zach and Zonker. Anyway, they were talking about cannabis, but also he was worried about being gay or straight.
Yeah.
And they decided he was fluid.
Yes, fluid is the favorite thing now, sort of lesbians out of fashion. But this one is fluid because I like to stay in touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one is fluid.
That's great. Let's go to the next one. And the next one is actually
How It Happens.
How It Happens or How I Do It?
It's called Midnight, but I like to refer to it as How I Did It.
Okay,
how
you did it.
Yeah. And we're leading up with the black and whites.
Yeah.
And maybe I've gotten more austere as I age. Okay. And he's black and white too.
Yeah.
But again, another brilliant model.
Yeah.
Me, I just say, okay, let's see if I can draw him.
Yeah. And this we have it in a video, and it's got a nice music background, but you can talk about what's going on while we watch it. So, in this video, tell us a bit about it.
Well, what you're seeing is a very dramatic and expressionist pose taken by a model named Irving, but I call the video Midnight because I didn't think Irving would really work. And I call that image Midnight. And as you see it, it's another black and white, and it shows a certain pain. Black Lives Matter. It's all risen to the surface again. It's time to do it again. Work on this. Okay. And I love it. I love the way that image came out. Yeah. And I'm also very grateful to Irving for his drama.
I love the fact that you have put so much of your story into books.
Yeah.
And the books are available, and these are just the 3 that I happen to have, but you have the book of poetry, you have other books. I know I don't have them listed here, but tell us where we can get these books. Tell us.
Well, you can come to my website, drjudysart.com, or go to Amazon. They're all on Amazon under my name, which has a weird spelling, but there it is. I'd love it if you wanted to look at the books. And a lot of Rossmore people might particularly like portraits, life interrupted, portraits in a late style, because it's about us. It's about old age vision.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. Thank you. I'm just so impressed. And here's a slide that shows you're just totally into San Francisco and graffiti, and what a wonderful slide. What a wonderful slide to close on.
Thank you. Yeah.
So
I'm sort of all here in one place now. I'm a Bay Area artist.
Okay. And it's been so much fun to have you as a guest, and you've got such an incredible life and so uplifting, actually.
Okay.
After tragedy, the survival and all of you've given all your talents, and as Saul Bellow would say, you're a Renaissance woman. Thank you very
John,
much,
thank you.
Judy. Appreciate it. And that's our show for now, and thank you for watching Artist View. We'll watch for the next shows. We have such wonderful, wonderful people here in Rossmore, and so much experience, so many things to share. I hope you'll keep in mind Artist View and check the schedule and join us soon. And keep on painting, keep on having fun.